Sergeant Smith, present the honorees for the award ceremony. Please stand for the national anthem. Uniformed officers, come to attention and cover.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch, we're so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order. Ho!
Please have a seat. Good evening. My name is Brandon Kutz. I'm the commander of the 4th District, and I would like to welcome everybody today to the City of Cleveland Division of Police Award Ceremony. First off, I'd like to acknowledge Patrol Officer Heather Bruner for a very fine job performing the national anthem. Thank you, Officer Bruner. I would like to call upon Cleveland Division of Police Chaplain Doug Brown to offer our invocation.
Almighty God, you are with us this evening. You've been with us this time. We ask that you continue to be with us. We pray for peace in our streets. We give thanks for the men and women who so valiantly protect us, those who are here to be honored this evening, and those who are not able to be here. Bless their family and their friends, all those who support them, all those who give them strength, all those who give them the hope to carry on. We ask all this in your name, O Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain. This time I'd like to recognize our city officials and other special guests who have joined us for today's ceremony. The Mayor of the City of Cleveland, the Honorable Frank G. Jackson, the Public Safety Director, Michael McGrath, Chief of Police Calvin Williams and members of his command staff, Cuyahoga County Sheriff Clifford Pinckney, United States Attorney for the Northern District of Ohio, Justin Herdman, also from the U.S. Attorney's Office, Craig Tame, from the Drug Enforcement Agency, the Resident Agent in Charge, James Goodwin, from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Kyle Walton, and the Special Agent in Charge, Trevor Vellenor, from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Assistant Special Agent in Charge, Alvin Winston, from the Blue Coats, the Executive Director, Chuck Lobello, from the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association, President Jeffrey Fulmer, from the Hispanic Police Officers Association, President Eddie Quadra, and the Manager of the Office of Professional Standards, Roger Smith. Thank you all for being in attendance tonight. Please welcome the Honorable Mayor Frank G. Jackson, who would like to say a few words to our honorees.
Good evening. I want to welcome everyone to this ceremony recognizing the men and women, both police officers and civilians, and really congratulate them on the recognition, but most of all, thank them for their willingness to serve. And as you listen to the scenarios and the awards that are given, you will see how they have provided service to the citizens of the city of Cleveland. So again, welcome, congratulations, and thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Jackson. Now please welcome Safety Director Michael McGrath, who would like to say a few words.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to start out by thanking those family members and friends who are here this evening. I know your loved ones appreciate you being here, but we appreciate you being here even more. And you should be very proud of the accomplishments of your loved ones and the award recipients this evening. I'd like to also acknowledge Chief Williams and his staff for hosting and continuing the awards tradition which takes place in this council chambers. Chief, thank you. To the award recipients, I have a few words and they're very sincere. We're here this evening to join with your coworkers, your friends, family members, to tell you how proud we are of the service that you provide to our community in good times and especially in these times of challenge. Please know that your work is appreciated and you should be commended for your continued commitment to your chosen profession and your community. That is why it's only fitting that we take time this evening to recognize your heroic efforts and say thank you for a job well done. While we share these shining moments and these career milestones this evening with your families, I know you share similar moments with your fellow officers in the Division of Police every day. I respect the difficult work that you do. I pray for your continued safety. I value your dedication and your professionalism, and I applaud your accomplishments. This evening provides us an opportunity to reflect on life's priorities and the difference you make in the lives of each person in our community that you touch. On behalf of the lives for whom you have made a difference, I salute you, each and every one of you. And at this time, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge those community partners that are receiving awards this evening. You got involved not because it was your responsibility, but because it was your community. I'd like to recognize and thank you for your partnership. And in closing, on behalf of the Department of Public Safety, I'd like to thank everyone.
Thank you, Director McGrath. At this time, I would like to introduce Chief of Police Calvin Williams to say a few words.
Thank you, Commander. Good evening.
Good evening.
How's everybody doing? Should be doing a lot better than that. This is a good occasion. I just lost my button coming up here. So I want to, first of all, congratulate our fine officers for the accomplishments that they're here for today. But I want to make a point that this is a small example of the work that the men and women of this division do day in and day out. We could easily fill every seat in these council chambers with police officers and civilians that do a great job for us every day. But we're here tonight to recognize these officers. I want to congratulate you. I definitely want to thank your families for coming out tonight on this nice, is it summer yet? Almost summer. We got another day, I think. Is it today? Okay. I lost track. But, you know, you came out here on a summer night to, you know, support your loved ones. We appreciate that because that's what's needed nowadays with our profession, because things are tough. And you'll hear a lot of scenarios tonight that kind of exemplify that toughness. But tough or not, the officers that you see here before you today rose to the occasion and did their jobs and did them professionally, respectfully, in service to this community. And that's what this division stands for. I also want to say that, you know, there's always that little saying, an exception to the rule. Well, this is the rule. This isn't an exception to the rule. Again, this isn't a small example of what happens in this division. This is the rule. This is what our men and women do day in and day out. And they represent us well, and I'm very proud of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Williams. I'd now like to ask our invited dignitaries to form up at the front of the room to accept our honorees while I read off the awards that will be presented tonight. The Medal of Heroism is awarded to police officers who demonstrate extraordinary bravery or act in an exemplary and extraordinary manner while at substantial risk of personal harm. The Distinguished Service Medal is awarded to those police officers who demonstrate a high degree of personal initiative, perform substantially above normal requirements in an exemplary manner, contribute significantly to the achievement of law enforcement goals, or consistently perform at the highest levels of law enforcement excellence as indicated by a special faithfulness to duty. The Special Commendation Award is awarded to divisional personnel who distinguish themselves by improving an administrative or tactical procedure within the Division of Police, fostering a successful community affairs program, or performing a valuable police service which demonstrates special diligence or perseverance. The Chief's Outstanding Unit Award is presented in recognition of outstanding police service performed by a unit of the Division of Police. The Citizen Award Plaque is awarded to citizens who distinguish themselves through the performance of a heroic act involving great personal risk. To start off the evening, will Officers Joseph Rakowski and Thomas Smith please come forward? Officers Rakowski and Smith will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. And I do not believe they are here. I will read off their award really quickly. On April 10, 2017, Officers Joseph Rakowski and Thomas Smith received a call for a business alarm that was upgraded to a breaking and entering in progress. While diligently checking all areas of this large fenced-in business property, they encountered a suspicious male appearing to load items into a pickup truck on an adjacent street. Officers Rakowski and Smith quickly investigated and arrested this male, recovering several items from this break-in, including a large stash of marijuana. Several other armed and masked suspects fled the scene, eluding capture, but dropping 2 loaded firearms, which were recovered by Officers Rakowski and Smith. Through their attentiveness and hard work, Officers Rakowski and Smith helped remove an armed and dangerous criminal from the streets of Cleveland, and for that we will be presenting them this award. Will Officers Brandon Melbar and James Thomas please come forward? Officers Melbar and Thomas will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. On October 20th, 2017, Officers Brandon Melbar and James Thomas were on patrol when they spotted a vehicle matching the description of a vehicle taken at gunpoint earlier that day. When the offenders noticed the patrol car and the officers approaching, they jumped out of the stolen vehicle and tried unsuccessfully to flee. Officers Thomas and Melbar were able to take both offenders into custody without incident. During an inventory of the vehicle, they recovered a handgun fully loaded with a 17-round magazine that had been stolen earlier in the year. Officers Thomas and Melbar's tactical approach and creative handling of this incident produced 2 arrests, a gun off the city streets, and helped recover a stolen car and property which was linked to another unsolved crime. Officers, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Mr. Franklin Birchfield and Mr. Justin Leon please come forward? Mr. Birchfield and Mr. Leon will be receiving the Citizen Plaque Award. On November 9th, 2017, at approximately 9:35 p.m., a vehicle, which was later discovered to be stolen, crashed into a tree, and 2 juveniles exited the vehicle and fled on foot. Mr. Franklin Birchfield and Mr. Justin Leon were at their homes when they heard the crash and went out to investigate. Mr. Birchfield witnessed one of the juveniles as he got out of the vehicle and began running away from the scene of the accident. Mr. Birchfield, without regard for his own safety, detained the juvenile a block away from the crash site and held him until police arrived. Mr. Leon observed a juvenile exiting the driver's seat of the vehicle as he attempted to flee the scene. Without regard for his own safety, Mr. Leon ran after the juvenile and tackled him as he was attempting to climb a fence at the rear of a neighboring house. Both juveniles were arrested, charged with grand theft motor vehicle, and the vehicle was recovered and returned to its rightful owner. Were it not for the selfless actions of these 2 citizens, 2 car thieves would have escaped justice. Mr. Birchfield and Mr. Leon, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Detectives Nicholas Harston, Benjamin McCauley, and Randolph Murphy please come forward? Detectives Harston, McCauley, and Murphy will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. On Monday, April 19, 2017, these detectives of the 5th District Vice Unit led an operation to address numerous citizen complaints of drug activity. While conducting surveillance, the detectives observed hand-to-hand drug transactions involving a vehicle in a nearby parking lot. Detectives approached the driver, who identified himself as a corrections officer and displayed a Cuyahoga County Sheriff's ID badge in an attempt to throw off the detectives' investigation. During a routine search of the suspect's vehicle, detectives discovered a large cache of narcotics packaged for individual sale, nearly $2,000 in cash and a handgun. The detectives' actions ultimately resulted in the arrest and conviction of an armed drug dealer, thereby removing this menace from the Cleveland community. Detectives, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards tonight. That's what you get for going the wrong way, Nick. Will dispatchers Delia Lopez and Deborah Corrigan and Miss Abriana Johnson please come forward? Dispatchers Lopez and Corrigan will be receiving the Special Commendation Award, and Miss Johnson will be receiving the Citizen Award plaque. On June 16, 2017, dispatchers Deborah Corrigan and Delia Lopez received a call from a distraught and crying 4-year-old child. Dispatchers Lopez and Corrigan were able to determine that the little girl was named Abriana Johnson and that she had dialed 911 from her mother's cell phone because she could not wake her mother up. Abriana could not provide an address of her location, but dispatchers Corrigan and Lopez contacted the mother's cell phone provider in an attempt to ping or track her cell phone. Their efforts paid off when Abriana and her mother, who suffers from a debilitating medical condition, were located at the home of a family member. Dispatchers Lopez and Corrigan went above and beyond the call of duty to assist a family in distress. Abriana was placed with a relative on scene, and her mother was transported to the hospital where she was eventually treated and released. Because of her medical condition, Abriana's mother taught her young daughter to call 911. Despite her young age, Abriana displayed a high level of maturity during what must have been a very frightening situation and managed to help her mother at a time when she needed her most. Dispatchers Corrigan and Lopez and Ms. Johnson, it is our privilege to honor you with this award. Will officers Amy Blasco, Amanda Jones, Daniel O'Malley, and Eric Zeitz please come forward? Officers Blasco, Jones, O'Malley, and Zeitz will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. On August 2nd, 2017, these officers responded to a radio broadcast in the area of Eddy Road and Oakview Avenue for suspected heroin overdose. Officers O'Malley and Jones arrived on scene first and found a 30-year-old female lying on the sidewalk, barely breathing and unresponsive. The officers quickly assessed the female's condition and, based on their training, recognized the signs of opiate overdose and immediately initiated division protocol for administering Narcan. Officers O'Malley and Jones depleted their supply of the antidote, and the female remained unresponsive. Officers Blasco and Jones arrived on scene and immediately retrieved Narcan from their zone car and administered an additional dose. Within seconds of this additional dose, the female opened her eyes and began to respond to the officers. The quick actions of these officers prevented another deadly drug overdose. Officers, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Sergeant Andrew Harhay please come forward? Sergeant Harhay will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. On September 23, 2017, Sergeant Andrew Harhay responded to assist a fellow 4th District supervisor with radio broadcast for a homicide. The suspect was identified by name, and officers used this information to find a cell phone number for him. Dispatchers notified the cell phone carrier and requested they conduct a ping test to assist officers in finding the suspect's phone. The test returned signals which indicated the suspect's phone was located in the area of the Morris Black housing complex. Sergeant Harhay performed a brief search of the area and found the suspect sitting in front of a local store. Sergeant Harhay called for backup, which arrived and assisted him in ordering the suspect to the ground and placing him under arrest without incident. Sergeant Harhay's swift and capable action resulted in the successful apprehension of a dangerous homicide suspect. Sergeant Harhay, it is our privilege to honor you with this award. Will Officer John Sanderson, Jr. please come forward? Officer Sanderson will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. On August 23, 2017, Officer John Sanderson reported to assist with the radio broadcast for a male shot. Upon arrival on scene, he discovered a male lying on the ground in a parking lot. Using the emergency trauma kit from his patrol car, Officer Sanderson immediately administered first aid to the victim. As he cut the victim's pants to gain access to the actual injury, Officer Sanderson was met with a gaping wound that was bleeding profusely. He retrieved the tourniquet from his kit and quickly applied it to stave off the flow of blood. Although his arms, boots, and uniform were now covered in blood, Officer Sanderson successfully stopped the victim's wounds from bleeding until medical assistance arrived. Were it not for Officer Sanderson's quick and selfless actions, a victim of a gunshot victim may have lost his life. When he is not protecting and serving the citizens of Cleveland, Officer Sanderson is actively pursuing a pre-med program at Baldwin Wallace University. Officer Sanderson, it is our privilege to honor you with this award. Will Lieutenant Robert Foley please come forward? Lieutenant Foley will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. On October 29, 2017, while following up on a tip from the Homicide Unit, Lieutenant Robert Foley, the 1st District detectives located a homicide suspect at his residence in a neighboring suburb. The suspect sat in his vehicle, parked in the driveway of his home, and held a knife to his throat, stating he would not go to jail, and threatened to kill himself or commit suicide by cop. During the standoff, which lasted for over 3 hours, Lieutenant Foley cautiously approached the suspect's vehicle, engaged him in conversation, and eventually established a rapport with the suspect, which helped prevent him from taking his own life. While maintaining a position of safety, Lieutenant Foley successfully kept the suspect alive and calm, assuring them that officers were there to help him until crisis negotiators and SWAT could arrive on scene and take the male into custody. Lieutenant Foley, it will be our privilege to issue this award to you in the near future. Will Officers Brandon Melbar and Sean Wool please come forward? These officers will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. On November 15, 2017, while on routine patrol, Officers Sean Wool and Brandon Melbar observed a male matching the description of a suspect from a shooting which occurred earlier in their shift. The male saw police and made a sudden change of direction, disappearing into a driveway. Officers Wool and Melbar followed the male to investigate further. The male began reaching toward his waistband and suddenly fled, ignoring the officer's orders to stop. The male appeared to be under the influence of hallucinogenic drugs exhibiting extraordinary strength and struggling with the officers as they finally managed to handcuff him. Officers Wool and Melbar patted the male down, finding a fully loaded .38 caliber revolver in his waistband and a vial of suspected PCP in his pants pocket. Because of the keen perception and vigilance of these two officers, a male who was armed, dangerous, and high on drugs was safely taken into custody and removed from the streets of Cleveland. Officers, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Officer Michael Cozart II please come forward? Officer Cozart will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. On June 25, 2017, while working secondary employment, Officer Michael Cozart II was approached by an unknown male who informed him that someone had collapsed in a common area. Officer Cozart radioed for medical assistance and responded to the area where he found a male lying face down and unresponsive. Officer Cozart turned the male onto his side, checked for a pulse, found that the male was not breathing and that his face was turning blue. Officer Cozart immediately began to perform a series of chest compressions until medics arrived. Officer Cozart's quick actions during this medical emergency proved to be a major factor in saving the victim's life. Officer Cozart, it is our privilege to honor you with this award. Will Officers Michael Harper and Nicholas Lombardi please come forward? These officers will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. On August 20, 2017, while off-duty Officer Michael Harper was contacted by Officer Nicholas Lombardi, who was investigating an aggravated robbery that had just occurred in the zone Harper regularly patrols. Because of his familiarity with the designated area, Officer Harper was able to provide Officer Lombardi with names and addresses of persons of interest who had previously been involved in local robberies. With the information provided by Officer Harper, Officer Lombardi managed to identify 3 suspects, arrest 2 of them, and process the suspect vehicle within about an hour of the time the robbery had occurred. Even during off-duty hours, Officer Harper exhibited a vested interest in the activity in his zone and provided vital information which led to the arrest of several dangerous offenders. Officers, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Officer James Bellamy please come forward? Officer Bellamy will be receiving the Special Commendation Award. On October 16, 2017, Officer James Bellamy responded to a radio broadcast to conduct an investigation involving a 74-year-old Vietnam War veteran. Dispatchers advised Officer Bellamy that the missing male suffered from a brain tumor and provided information from a ping test with a possible location for his cell phone. Officer Bellamy began a search of the area, observing it to be very thickly wooded with a steep hill leading down to a ravine, very cold and dark and completely covered with thorny brush. Officer Bellamy soon found the male tangled up in the thorny brush, notified radio of his location and the male's condition. Officer Bellamy and other officers carried the victim down very steep terrain back to safe ground, where he was eventually transported to the hospital for additional medical treatment. Were it not for Officer Bellamy's dogged determination, this elderly military veteran might well have perished alone in the cold, dark woods. Officer Bellamy, it is our privilege to honor you with this award. Will Detectives Cynthia Adkins and Christina Cottom please come forward? Detectives Adkins and Cottom will be receiving the Distinguished Service Medal. In July of 2014, these detectives conducted an extensive investigation involving the assault of 5 juvenile victims. All of the victims were between the ages of 9 and 14, and one was also developmentally disabled. Over the course of their investigation, the detectives collected and submitted approximately 46 items of evidence, some of which generated additional items of evidence. Analysis of electronic evidence collected identified an additional 12 adult elderly victims. These detectives were able to determine that each of these victims suffered from medical conditions which rendered them unable to care for themselves, and that they were all under the care of the same female suspect. Working closely with several outside agencies, this investigation led to a total of 150 felony indictments against the female suspect and her boyfriend. Detectives Adkins and Cottom, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Officers William Mazer and David Santiago please come forward? These officers will be receiving the Distinguished Service Medal. On August 18, 2017, officers William Mazer and David Santiago were en route to a detail assignment when they observed a female struggling with the male. When they stopped to investigate, the male assaulting the female fled on foot. Officer Santiago chased the suspect and apprehended him after a short pursuit. The female victim reported she was waiting for the local transit at a bus stop on the corner of a busy street when the male suspect approached her, offered a compliment, and then attacked her. The female victim was struggling to free herself from the suspect when the officers pulled up, causing the suspect to flee. Through their efforts, the suspect was apprehended, arrested, and charged. Officers Mazer and Santiago demonstrated due diligence by thwarting the attack and helping to remove a violent sexual offender from the streets of Cleveland. Officers, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Detective Ian Muscle please come forward? Detective Muscle will be receiving the Distinguished Service Award. On September 30th, 2017, Detective Muscle was given the assignment to follow up on a kidnapping involving a child. Detective Muscle contacted the grandmother, who advised him that she was the legal guardian. Her grandson was a 1-year-old and was prescribed a special formula which he needed to be fed every 2 hours. Detective Muscle was especially concerned when the grandmother indicated that both parents were addicted to alcohol and PCP and had taken the child without permission, leaving his car seat, diapers, and prescription formula behind. Detective Muscle found the suspect vehicle parked at a residence 3 miles away from where the kidnapping occurred. After hearing a faint whimper from inside a bedroom and investigating further, Detective Muscle observed 7 people passed out on a bed and lying partially on top of an infant who was face down. Detective Muscle quickly pulled the child free and requested medical attention. He then identified the parents among the persons on the bed and placed them both under arrest without incident. Detective Muscle, it is our privilege to honor you with this award. Will Officer William Mazer please come forward? Officer Mazer will be receiving the Distinguished Service Medal. On January 12, 2016, a cold and snowy night, Officer William Mazer was assisting other officers who were searching for suspects involved in several armed robberies of students in the area. Officer Mazer noticed footprints in the snow and began following them through a residential neighborhood. During his search, Officer Mazer located a handgun near the rear porch of a residence. Officer Mazer secured the handgun as other officers searched for and located the suspects nearby. Through cooperative efforts, officers were able to locate and arrest several violent suspects, recover the firearm, and stolen property from these robberies. Officer Mazer, it is our privilege to honor you with this award. Will Detective Richard Tusing please come forward? Detective Tusing will be receiving the Distinguished Service Medal. On Monday, December 25, 2016, Detective Richard Tusing received an assignment to investigate a case involving a female victim of an assault. Detective Tusing gathered the details of the case and determined they were particularly severe, as the victim, who was 5 months pregnant, had endured several hours of torture. Detective Tusing visited local businesses and successfully located a security camera that had captured a video of the suspect. He began canvassing the neighborhood, showing the suspect's photo to area residents and merchants, and eventually found a store clerk who stated that the man in the photo looked familiar. Detective Tusing set up surveillance on the store, observed the suspect on his next visit, and followed him to verify his identity. Detective Tusing obtained arrest and search warrants and arrested the suspect. DNA tests confirmed the suspect's DNA matched samples taken from the victim. Additional DNA testing revealed a link to the suspect, which helped to solve another assault. Detective Tusing's use of superior investigative and collaborative skills and persistence in solving this crime are proof of his unparalleled concern for his victims. Detective Tusing, it is our honor and privilege to give you this award tonight. Will Detectives Charles Davis, Donald Kopchak, Robert Sauterer, Sean Smith, and Jeffrey Yazinchek please come forward? These detectives will be receiving the Distinguished Service Medal. On June 6, 2017, these detectives of the Cleveland Division of Police 5th District Vice Unit executed a search warrant at a residence in a neighboring suburb. This search warrant was the result of a lengthy investigation into drug trafficking in the 5th District neighborhoods. These detectives utilized personal initiative and tenacity while executing numerous undercover and surveillance operations to gather intelligence. identify, and apprehend serious drug offenders. Their efforts resulted in the seizure of a large quantity of narcotics, including fentanyl-laced heroin, and the removal of several high-level heroin traffickers who were responsible for an unprecedented amount of heroin and fentanyl deaths from the streets of Cleveland. Detectives, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Officer Christopher Larson please come forward? Officer Larson will be receiving the Distinguished Service Medal. On August 13, 2017, Officer Christopher Larson and his K-9 received certification allowing them to operate as a K-9 explosives team anywhere in the United States. While this is an accomplishment for any K-9 handler, the circumstances surrounding Officer Larson's certification were especially extraordinary. On May 9, 2017, Officer Larson's previous K-9 was retired due to an advanced age, which left the airport unit short a K-9 team. Because a full contingent of K-9 teams is essential to division airport unit operations, officials would have to expedite the process to replace this K-9. Through due diligence, Officer Larson not only guided his new K-9 through the training process in record-breaking time, but also received perfect scores in the major performance areas of the assessments. Officer Larson, it is our privilege to honor you with this award. Will Officers Charles Bartlebaugh, Matt Zooks, Michael Raspberry, and Detective Robert Norman please come forward? These officers will be receiving the Distinguished Service Medal. In July of 2017, Officers Charles Bartlebaugh, Matt Zooks, and Michael Raspberry, and Detective Robert Norman were tasked with identifying and apprehending burglary suspects in connection with the massive influx of burglaries in the Ohio City neighborhood and surrounding areas. Starting with a very limited number of leads, the officers managed to arrest and identify several individuals connected to more than 40 burglaries. These officers established probable cause for multiple search warrants and arrests, which led to the recovery of dozens of stolen articles. Before his arrest, one male terrorized Ohio City residents and taunted law enforcement officials on social media while displaying high-powered weapons. Thanks to the relentless pursuit of justice by these officers, the suspects were apprehended and removed from the streets of Cleveland. Officers, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Detectives Nicholas Harston, Benjamin McCauley, and Randy Murphy please come forward? Detectives Harston will be receiving the Medal of Heroism, and Detectives McCauley and Murphy will be receiving the Distinguished Service Medal. On November 14, 2017, Detectives Nicholas Harston, Benjamin McCauley, and Randolph Murphy of the 5th District Vice Unit were conducting an investigation near 438 East 118th Street, an area known for high drug and gang activity in Cleveland. During the course of their investigation, these detectives observed a suspicious vehicle with multiple occupants. As the detectives approached the vehicle for further investigation, the rear right passenger suddenly jumped out of the vehicle and fled on foot. These detectives gave chase and quickly apprehended the suspect. As officers were attempting to secure the first suspect in the patrol car, they heard a gunshot and secured the driver of the suspect vehicle who had suddenly become combative. The detectives recovered a Black Smith & Wesson .40 caliber semi-automatic handgun from the suspect's vehicle. Officers later discovered that the firearm had been discharged when the suspect dropped it, and the bullet had struck their patrol car, thankfully missing the officers. After officers cleared the firearm for safety, it was determined that during the struggle between Detective Harston and the suspect, the firearm had been in such close proximity to his body that it prevented another round from cycling through and being fired at officers. Detectives, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Sergeant David Skurletz and Officers Shane McNay, Colbert Stadden, Nicholas Sefcik, Daniel Smith, and Sean Wool please come forward. Officers Stadden and Wool will be receiving the Medal of Heroism, and Sergeant Skurletz, Officers McNay, Sefcik, and Smith will be receiving the Distinguished Service Medal. On June 14, 2017, Sergeant David Skurletz, along with Officers Nicholas Sefcik and Daniel Smith, assisted Officers Sean Wool and Colbert Stadden, who had spotted a suspect vehicle that was wanted in connection with the felonious assault shooting and 2 aggravated robberies which had spanned across the city. As officers Wool and Stanton attempted to stop the vehicle, the passenger jumped out of the car, pulled a black handgun from his waistband, pointed the gun at the officers, and pulled the trigger. Realizing the gun had not fired, the suspect again attempted to chamber another round as he started to flee on foot. Sergeant Skerletz joined the chase and immediately advised radio and other responding cars when he observed the suspect running with a gun in his hand. The suspect continued to flee from officers and ignored their orders to drop his weapon. Officers McNay and Sefcik placed their patrol car in a position that cut the fleeing suspect off, forcing him to slow down, lose his footing, and fall to the ground. After multiple commands, the suspect finally dropped his weapon and was placed under arrest by Officer McNay. The officer's diligence and quick thinking aided investigations and helped to shut down a robbery ring that had plagued the city of Cleveland. Officers, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will United States Air Force Staff Sergeant Jacob Ritchie and Airman First Class Thomas Kmetich please come forward? Staff Sergeant Ritchie and Airman First Class Kmetich will be receiving the Citizen Award plaque. Airman First Class Kmetich is currently assigned or stationed in Colorado, and accepting on his behalf tonight will be his parents, Tom and Michelle Kmetich. On November 1st, 2017, police radio received a call for a severe motor vehicle accident on a busy street in Cleveland. A lone CPD sergeant was first to arrive on scene and observed the vehicle lying upside down after shearing a utility pole in half. As paramedics attempted to extract the driver, a crowd of curious onlookers formed and surrounded the accident scene. As the sergeant was attempting to contain the crowd and busy roadway, he was approached by Staff Sergeant Jacob Ritchie and Airman First Class Thomas Kmetich offering assistance. The sergeant accepted and the airman assisted with the directing traffic while the sergeant kept the crowd back. Both men were instrumental in assisting at a very tragic and chaotic scene. They are not only outstanding representatives of the United States Air Force, but also fine examples of what it truly means to be an American. Staff Sergeant Ritchie, Airman First Class Thomas Kmetich, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Officers Haley McNatt and Nicholas Morley please come forward? Officers McNatt and Morley will be receiving the Medal of Heroism. On November 16, 2017, while on routine patrol, Officer Haley McNatt and Nicholas Morley came upon a severe motor vehicle accident involving multiple vehicles. A large crowd surrounded one of the vehicles with its hood area on fire. As they exited their patrol car, both officers observed the burning vehicle was in contact with a house. The officers immediately ordered onlookers away from the area and called for the Cleveland Fire Department to respond. Upon inspecting the burning vehicle, the officers assisted 3 injured males out of the vehicle to safety. When medics arrived, the officers continued to assist in extracting these 3 additional victims from a second vehicle involved in the accident. Officers McNatt and Morley acted quickly, decisively, and without regard for their own safety. Officers, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards. Will Lieutenant Richard Sanders please come forward? Lieutenant Sanders will be receiving the Medal of Heroism. On September 30th, 2017, while off duty, Lieutenant Richard Sanders observed a male perched dangerously on top railings off a bridge in the Cleveland Metro Parks. The male was rocking back and forth and in apparent distress. Lieutenant Sanders immediately stopped his vehicle and approached this male to offer assistance. He quickly grabbed the male in a bear hug fashion and began pulling him backwards to safety. The male repeatedly attempted to pull away, resisting rescue efforts. 2 bystanders observed the incident and stopped to assist Lieutenant Sanders in pulling the male down from the railing. Lieutenant Sanders suffered injury to his hands as a result of the struggle. In spite of his resistance, Lieutenant Sanders contained this male until police arrived to convey him to a hospital for assistance. Lieutenant, it is our privilege to honor you with this award. Will Sergeants Margaret Sudi and Lisa Sertovic and Officers Timothy Angelone, Wilfred Gandarilla, Jose Garcia, Brian Kellums, Nelson Munez, Ricardo Roman, Arnaldo Torres, Pedro Vargas, and Sabrina Walker please come forward. These officers will be receiving the Chief's Outstanding Unit Award. The Cleveland Division of Police Technology Integration Unit faced extraordinarily challenging times the past couple of years that involved training and preparation for significant changes and demands on the division to meet new standards established by the Department of Justice Settlement Agreement. Under the leadership of Sergeants Margaret Sudi and Lisa Surdovic, the Technology Integration Unit spent countless hours upgrading the division's record management system, implemented, introduced, and trained the division patrol section on field-based reporting, all while maintaining a 24-hour, 7-day support schedule. TIU team members successfully led the division through multiple transitions under vigorous time constraints. TIU continues to manage the demands of data integrity and hardware and software updates as the division transitions into a paperless and more efficient environment for modern policing. Members of the Cleveland Division of Police Technology Integration Unit, it is our privilege to honor you with these awards tonight. Dignitaries and guests, you may please be seated. Now I would ask that all of tonight's award recipients please stand. A hand salute is a sign of honor and respect. At this time, I will lead us in demonstrating our respect for all of these gallant officers and brave citizens. Command staff, please stand and cover. Face the recipients. Present arms. Order. Arms. How about a round of applause for our recipients? Now I'd like to ask Cleveland Police Chaplain Doug Brown to lead us in our closing prayer.
We give thanks for these examples of bravery, courage, and service, O Lord. And we ask that you please be with these men and women, those who are here, those who are not here. Remind them daily that they do indeed make a difference in this world, in this city, and in this community. Continue to protect and guide them. Let your face shine upon them. We ask this in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Chaplain. One final thought before we go. For every scenario that's been recounted to you this evening, there are countless others that were just as heroic and just as selfless that weren't recognized, many of which were carried out by the very men and women that are in this room here tonight. The men and women you see before you are but a fraction of the dedicated law enforcement professionals that are working to make this great city safer and a better place to live, work, and visit. I'm truly humbled to be in the presence of so many fine men and women. I'd like to thank you all once again for taking the time to join us tonight to honor these many worthy award recipients. This concludes the award ceremony for tonight. Thank you and have a good night.